we at the dance hall one night had their regular dance there, and like I said, they had the Delco system, and the lights were fair, but nevertheless, that had nothing to do with this. But I think they took in $46 worth of revenue, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, it was in the Wyoming Mercury not too long ago, about 75 years ago, or whatever it was, or 50 years ago, I guess 50. Well, anyway. Anyhow, the money sack went missing. Somebody stole it. And Grandpa was, quite depressed, because obviously that was a big night. There was a lot of money, and he had to pay expenses for his beer and soda water and the band and whatever. So we thought it was all lost. But I don't know, it was a couple, 3 weeks later or whatever, Grandpa Billy went to the mailbox, and it was out by the road and on a post. And down by the bottom there was this money sack was down by the mailbox there. And I guess somebody had a guilty conscience, and they brought the money back. I mean, the money sack back, but it was minus about $20. But they did bring it back. So that was kind of funny how that happened, and just didn't have much stealing going on in those days. We'd have what they call a masquerade dance at the Billick Hall, and people would dress up in costumes. Everything was homemade. I mean, you couldn't go down to the store and buy. Everything was just homemade costumes. And I remember my mom took moss off of a tree, and I had some kind of old pair of coveralls, an old shirt, and she sewed this moss all over myself. I guess I looked like one of those movies, Spider-Man or something. I mean, not like, but I guess that was kind of the theme that I was supposed to look like. So, going back, I'm going back and forth. I'm sorry, but anyhow, going back to the Bodark School, we had the outhouses. The boys was on the left down here in the trees, and the girls was over here on the right. They were about 50, 60, 70 feet apart, I guess, 50 feet apart. And the outhouses were just outhouses, and they had a latch on the outside that kept the door closed. It was just a piece of board that was nailed up there, and you just flicked it down, and there was a little latch built out on here, and that's what kept the door closed. And by the same token, there was a little deal on the inside that you kind of turned it over to when you was in there to keep the door closed. Anyway, I went in there, and I don't know, I thought it was about in the third grade. I don't remember, pretty close. I slammed that door, and the dadgum latch from the outside fell down, and I was locked in the outhouse. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I was too embarrassed. I was too embarrassed to holler about I was locked in the outhouse. Can you imagine that? And Miss Shamera came out there and started ringing the bell, and that hand, I guess I would seem like I was in a long time, but she kept ringing the bell, and that she'd go back in, and I guess she was getting concerned too, because everybody else was back. What few there was. But in between the little cracks between the boards, well, there was light, and I kept feeling down on the floor, and I'd find little twigs, you know, and I would slide them up, get in there and slide up there and try to bring that latch up so I could open that door. And I broke quite a few of them because they were kind of small, but finally I figured out, well, I've got to take tension off of that door. So I pulled that door to me to take the tension off of that latch. And finally I worked it up to where I could move that handle up there. And that was a little bit of a trauma back in those days. We, like I said, in 1945, the war had ended, and when we were at the Billy place, and I was 9 years old roughly, not quite. And we were picking sweet potatoes and cucumbers and things up there in the field. It was about a fourth of a mile away from the house, and I'm almost certain it was Uncle Fred. I don't know who else it could have been. But somebody came running over there, and they just heard on the radio that the war was over, and so we were just elated. We were jumping up and down, and because all these boys were coming back. Of course, some of them didn't come back, but most of them we knew were coming back, and the war was over. Getting back to the dance hall, Grandpa would always have a big Easter egg hunt on Easter Monday. Because in those days, Friday and Mondays were just, Friday was, of course, Good Friday. It was more of a holy day. But Easter Monday was kind of like a holiday, too. And he'd have Easter egg hunt up there by the dance hall out there on the field. And people would come from all around the area, and little girls came out, and they were so cute in their little dresses that their mothers had made for them, and or sister had made, older sister or something. And I remember them carrying little old homemade baskets and little sacks, and just vaguely remember that. Just vaguely remember that. Getting back to the masquerade thing. Well, they had judges. The masquerade dance had judges, and I guess the prize was maybe like $3 for number one, $2 for number two, and $1 for number three or something. But Grandpa would usually have a couple, three people judge who had the best costume or something, and that would happen about twice a year, if I remember correctly. But we had that, and that was kind of unique. The sad story about the Billick's Dance Hall was that it was, getting back, it was used quite a bit. I mean, politicians would come and give talks, and it was quite a deal, and weddings, and all that. But when the war broke out, well, most of our young men were gone. They were gone. And Grandpa just, I guess he lost interest, and he just didn't want to do it because those boys weren't there, and I guess maybe he just didn't feel good about it. I don't know what happened, but anyway, there was a shortage of lumber and tin, and he tore that hall down, which was a pretty good sized hall, and tore it down, and I don't know if he just gave most of that lumber away and tin off the roof or what. I don't know exactly, but it was certainly used. In fact, Leona Abel, which is Uncle Frank's only daughter, he's the oldest son, they live around Garwood, which is south of Columbus, about 12 miles or so, 15 miles. She told me that some of that tin is on one of their buildings that they have, that they got some of that tin from Grandpa Billick. They have it on their barn. So that ended that, and like I said, that was kind of a sad day, I'm sure, for my grandpa. We, like I said, we drove that old Model A Roadster and with the curtains and the rumble seat. And one night it was kind of cold, and we came out of the theater and with a picture show, and Dad came out against the pool hall. We were walking down the street with Mr. Barnes, and he was the local city marshal, and it was dark and not too much light in those days. But come in there, we want to get in that old Model A and open the door, and there was a poor little black boy in that car. I guess they had a car similar to that, and he was sitting in that car. And I realize it now, and it happened so fast. This little black boy, he was about my age, and I don't know, maybe 8, 9 years old, I don't know. But Mr. Thornton said, boy, he said, I ought to put you in jail for getting these people's car, and I remember that. And of course, he didn't do that, of course. He just frightened the kid a little more, obviously a lot more than he was. But the little kid took off, and we didn't know who he was, and we just didn't know who he was. And to this day, I don't know who it was. I just hope and pray the little boy recovered from that. It was just a different experience that just doesn't happen nowadays very much, I guess. And maybe it does, I don't know, but it certainly did there. We getting back to the Billy place, when I had our calves, and my daddy gave me that cow, and she had a calf, and he also had a cow about the same age. She had a little calf about the same time, and Mr. Casper came out and bought those 2 calves and put them in a trailer and took them to town, and they weigh them in town, and if my memory sometimes not very good, I'm 99% sure we were trying to guess which calf weighed the most, and Dad's weighed 505 and mine weighed 495. There was 10 pounds difference. But anyway, I remember that because I thought sure mine was heavier, but it wasn't anyway. But and one other experience I had out at Billick's was at the farm. I tried to. We always had cats and dogs, and I was real quiet one day, and this cat was kind of had a tail curled around, and it was in the sun, and kind of like it was sleeping or something like that. And I just really crept up on this cat real slow, and I went, and I hit that cat on the side, and she turned, and just bit a hole right through my finger, right through there. Oh my gosh, it scared me worse than the cat, I guarantee you. I'd never do that again. But we soaked my finger in kerosene, and anytime you stepped on a nail or anything like that, you soaked your foot in kerosene, which I told you kerosene was flammable. It wasn't as flammable as gasoline, but for some reason we did that. I don't know if it did any good or not.